Hello.
Hi.
Welcome back.
Yes. We're chatting about...
Yeah, I was just about to say I'm emotional because
I was just saying, you have a moment.
Because obviously he went, so I'm in a strop for this whole episode.
The slippers go flying this week.
Indeed. Well, we kind of knew really towards the end who was going to go, but
yes,
we'll talk about that as we go.
Yeah.
But yes, semi-final.
Yes, it was a very exciting semi-final as well. The messages were going. I had to turn my phone over, so I was like, no, I need to focus on the show. But yeah,
well, I only watched it last night.
Oh right.
So you're a little bit better off than us then.
You remember more than we do right now.
Well,
but
maybe.
Yeah, it was a good show.
Yeah,
it's really,
not
really
something my
enjoyable.
husband would let me watch.
We need to have words.
I think the thing when you get down to like the last 3, 4, 5, instinctively there is more time for them to be on camera, so you see more of the process, and so you do get more involved as well with each individual.
And because we've all been following it week by week, we definitely have our favourites at this point.
Yes.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And yes. So we'll start with the first challenge.
Yeah, so we had the pattern challenge because it was from around the world, patterns from around the world Sewing Week.
Yeah.
And we'd had something that I'd never heard of, our MCM pants, the Doty
pants. I've seen them because I've been to Bali and places. And obviously living in Brighton, you see them everywhere anyway. So they're quite popular, especially in the summer. They're so comfy.
But a lot of fabric.
Yeah.
When that pattern was unfolded.
Yeah. Oh my god, so much. And I didn't realise, it's like a weird big nappy when you're putting it together. It's got that folding up thing and you have to have the 2 tubes. So yeah, it was an interesting one to watch, especially, so 2 of them...
Leah made a circle skirt to start with.
Yes, as did... What
was it, Jen or Juliet?
I think it was Jen. Oh,
no.
No.
Who made the mistake?
Yeah, 2 of them, Juliet.
No, Juliet.
Juliet, yeah.
They both,
made weird tubes rather than... Yeah.
But that's because they just followed the seam up further than they should have done, and then next thing they know, it was a skirt rather than a pair of trousers.
Yeah.
So they were being tested on the amount of pleats or the detail of the tucks, and
it wasn't a pleat. It was more of a the way it hang. It was more to do with the hang.
Yeah, and they also weren't given like a full instructional pattern. Do you know what I mean? So the instructions were very minimal this week because they're like, well, semi-finals, we're only gonna give you the bare minimum, and they were only given the smallest amount possible. So
but
that was
to
interesting.
Test their pleating because the evenness of the pleats and.
The gathering
and and how to use elastic because
poor Ricardo had his foot on his at one point and just stretched
out. Board.
Yeah, and they also they had to figure out how much elastic should go in, so they weren't told for starters on that either. So there was a lot of maths involved this week, lots of it. So they had to figure out how their pleats should be.
Yeah.
So there was the maths on that front. So they had to figure out.
I think though, because I remember on the pattern they had the markers for the pleats. Yeah. So they were able to use that. So they had to.
Yeah. They had to figure out the fold.
Yeah.
So they all had to get the fold right.
But they had that on the pattern.
Because Leah didn't get the fold right.
No.
Because she had really bunched together, big space, and then bunched together. So hers weren't even.
No.
But like Ricardo's was even, but his back was a mess. Bless him. There was a big chunk where
he took 2 inches less elastic than anyone else, didn't he?
And then he clearly, as you say, he was pulling on it. And then when he did sew it in, there was the tiniest amount of thread holding it. So it had this weird bunching kind of thing going on. It looked really strange. It was like this weird gappy bit.
How important do you think the choice of fabrics were for that? Because Jen was the only one.
Well, this annoyed me.
Yeah.
And you know this annoyed me. Because when they did the cutaway, they were like, oh, they should use the cotton because it'll hang and it'll do all of this and it'll do all of that. And the judges there basically saying that the best fabric to use was the cotton.
Yeah.
And then Jen went ahead and used the silk. Now, the silk was lovely and the finished product was lovely, but don't do a bit to camera saying how they should be using cotton and then make the winning one the one out of silk.
I know, but they did say it dripped better.
Yeah.
And you can obviously get different weight cottons that could work, but you wouldn't recommend a silk to somebody to do something like that because that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So they're going to go with the most common denominator so people, like the public, can make it.
But that's why it annoyed me that she then won, because the others chose.
But she went outside the box. They always want them to push the boundaries, don't they? And to do the utmost, and she did.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't fault her sewing. The others had got bits of sewing wrong as well.
Yeah.
She was very lucky working with silk that it hadn't gone
Yeah,
wrong.
exactly, because if she had messed that up, that would have been...
Yeah.
Because you can't unpick
Which
silk and
poor
stuff.
old Leah, who chose to use her rotary cutter to correct herself, who then lost all of her seam allowance.
Oh my god, that was awful.
Well,
you just
she
sit
ended
there
up with
going,
a hungry bum, didn't she?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that phrase made a comeback.
The trousers, not her, okay? The trousers, not Leah.
But the phrase made a comeback, didn't it? The hungry bum.
Well, you don't want it, especially in those trousers. You do not want it. Should be nice and loose and flowy. And
well, that's the point of them, because you just think if one bend over there and the whole world's your gynaecologist. It's just not gonna.
You wouldn't want to sneeze.
No. Wasn't Ricardo's choice of colour lovely though?
His was nice and bright and vibrant. I liked all of them, to be honest. I was a bit dubious about the pattern. I liked Jen's pattern in the end.
Again, what did it for me was the fact that did the pattern hide a lot, whereas Ricardo's top stitching had to be really good, because you could on the plain fabric you could see where it just didn't quite sit right.
Yeah.
And so therefore those of them that use the pattern fabric, they kind of got away with it a little bit, I think.
Yeah, just a wee smidge. But the judges did take a really good look at everybody.
And so they should.
Yeah, so I think based on how the judges behave, I don't know how much they could have got away with, because they were like going in. Patrick was out with his measuring tape again, and
it was
they were really going for it. Yeah. So it was.
Then it was the semi-final.
Yeah. But I thought, Jen definitely she did so well in that first one, and I had such high hopes. Yes, Jen, you got this.
You think you got one in the bag once you've won one out of the three. You feel you're kind of
and
safe,
she said that,
don't you?
didn't she?
Yeah.
In the cutaway.
Yeah, she's got one under her belt.
So it then takes us on to the transformation challenge, isn't it?
Yes.
How is it? The Dashiki? Is that
yes,
how you say it?
I think so.
Dashiki, yeah.
Yes, and you see, that's where Jen went from top to, what are you doing? Yeah, it was.
But the thing is, with one of those, with the trouble with that sort of challenge is, first of all, they're 90 minutes long.
Yeah.
So once she had committed to cutting the corners off there and turning them round and turning them into shorts, even if you then think this isn't going to look right, what do? You run out of time.
But
you cut your fabric up. You know, you've got to commit. There's so many
different types of. She could have changed those shorts to something a bit more like you see them everywhere. Like if you're going to go with the whole holiday, those lovely swishy shorts have got a bit more fabric. You can bunch them, a bit of elastic, but it was horrendous. It was.
Do you think
awful.
she knew the two were going to be together? Do you think she started with one?
Oh, she put them together on the dummy.
But was it two?
I think
were they done
two
separately?
different outfits.
Yeah. Were they?
This was to make an outfit, not two different outfits. So she had to have known.
Yeah.
He's just off sorting things out. But
I mean, when it first came on, I turned around and said, "Well, I just make a tablecloth," because I took one look at it
and
went, cut that bit out of the middle, sew the back onto the end, nice table runner. But they wanted a garment, so I feel that I would have lost that
one.
When I saw it, the centre panel, I immediately thought neckline. Immediately thought that's a beautiful neckline.
But again, we've always said about the editing of this. At one point, Leah was cutting a hole in it.
Yes, we got a message from Ting going, "What is she doing?"
And putting it over the dummy, but then that wasn't what her finished garment was.
No,
it completely.
But clearly, that was her method. So she was just trying to figure out: does it going to sit there, or is it going to? Yeah, because I don't know. It was there's some interesting editing. You're not a fan of the editing.
He's especially not a fan of the editing, but that's because he likes. I said to him today, "You're always wanting to get behind the curtain."
Yeah.
You know, he's always wanting to be there with the wizard. He's never happy being out the front, and he's always trying to work out what's going on. And I said, sometimes you just have to take it at face value. But it annoys me across the board, not just with this, but things like The Apprentice and the
all of the shows are
where they do that manic editing at the end when they're going, "Oh, I've got an arm hanging off and I haven't hemmed it," and it's like you've got 3 minutes to go, and then suddenly there's a completed garment, and it's just like, well, I don't believe 3 minutes ago that was what it was.
I definitely thought that Jen, or Leah, I thought definitely, oh my god, she's struggling. She's really just struggling to get it. But then her end garment, I was like, she clearly was not. She had that under control.
I feel bad because every week I think I've said, oh, Leah's reached her limit, and Leah's now in the final.
Yeah.
But I think that's because you follow the editing where they've edited her, and I think she's a bit scatty, but they've edited her not only be scatty, but also in complete lack of control of what she's doing.
And that's something
yet she
Patrick
does
says as well.
produce something, and there might be the odd thing here and there,
but that's just.
But it's not horrendous as the way it seems to have been edited together.
I think that's the way. Certain people work in different ways, and I think this must be the way this woman works.
She works.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's given that impression that she was going every week, and actually she's now in the final.
Yeah. Ricardo had the yellow fabric, didn't he, with the big pleat?
Yes.
Yes, because they could use from the haberdashery, and he'd done this thing that then you undid the hook and it opened up, and the pattern was on. I actually quite liked it.
No,
because it was the combination of using the haberdashery with what he'd got.
Yeah.
Whereas when we were saying about Jen, she almost had got herself into that trouble because instead of going, I'm going to take some red fabric and combine it and make a pair of the shorts like you were saying with the ruffles and everything, she didn't. And he was like, well, I'm going to take that and I'm going to add it in. I mean, it wasn't practical. You wouldn't go out and it.
No, I was going to say if he'd finished it, maybe
design. It's 90 minutes, and he'd done quite well with that, I thought.
So you chat about Leah, have you?
Yeah.
Because
you were. I liked her dress. I love a bit of colour.
What I find interesting about
it would be interesting to see it on, because I think it needs to be on a person to see that drape really nicely. What I loved, it was so inventive.
I wasn't a fan of the colour.
No.
Well, it was how she started off, because I remember texting you. She's literally started off by just cutting the head and putting it over the top.
Yeah, that's
so
what
that was done.
Yeah.
So then it gave her more time to spend on the rest of it.
And she was so clever. And she had the pattern down the side. And she had that drape.
Although it was that cartoon moment when she won, that when you watch like Wile E. Coyote and the jaw hits the floor. It was the case of let me just pull that back up and bring it back up.
Yeah. And I preferred Juliet's.
The blue one.
Yes, it was lovely. It was pretty with the little
the
purple blue.
Yeah, I certainly had a break with her.
What do you call that?
I did.
Is it like off the shoulder? Thingy.
Yeah. But yes, hers was lovely.
I thought I was expecting that to win. Rather than Leah's.
Yeah. It was really well done.
Because you then had the reverse, hadn't you? Because Leah had been at the bottom in the first challenge and Jen had won. And then it completely flipped.
So it was then down to the last...
The tailoring.
Which...
But there wasn't much of Juliet, because Juliet's was lovely. It was nicely fitted and all that kind of good stuff. But I think they probably went for Leah's because it was so very different.
Good, though. But it stood out, didn't it?
Yeah,
really?
She just went for it. And I think that's, again, she clearly works well under pressure. She's just like, I'm just going to go for it.
And again, it's taken us a while to realise, but those challenges are 90 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't want to get too close to inspect those scenes.
I wouldn't be able to put something together in 90 minutes.
No way. I'd maybe just cut something out and be like, I'm going to have a cup of tea now. But the fact that they're literally hacking something up, putting it all back together again and going, ta-da!
Yeah.
Perhaps that's what we should do for another video, is film you doing a challenge. Where we chuck an item of clothing at you and go change it.
No, let me get some practice in first. I was actually, so yesterday I did go vintage shopping and bought loads of things, but there were so many things I was like, I want to get this and this and this and put it all together and be like, jazz hands, something. And I'm going to have to think about that. But yeah, it was interesting.
So going into the last round, we're now, us Jen fans are on sort of slight tenterhooks, aren't we?
Oh yeah, I was having a panic.
Pressure is on the last garment.
Yeah, and it really was, because given the way the tables kept flipping, because Juliet and Ricardo were kind of in the middle, so it was like, okay, you can kind of keep going through. You've kept it pretty average.
Yeah.
So it was a sort of nervous last sort of 20 minutes, wasn't it?
So
they had this wonderful challenge of producing something to do with origami. So it was the idea of looking at pleats and folds, wasn't it?
Well, it wasn't just pleats and folds, was it?
No,
it was construction.
That's where they then
and it was just like, that's where I'd have gone, just leave.
Thanks very much.
Don't worry with the elimination.
Is that where Jen did take it too far, because she was inspired by how the paper folding. So it wasn't just folds.
I think it was the
material.
No, it was the material that let it down.
Because she was using material that crumpled and she had to keep continually ironing that.
It was silk again, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And she damaged the silk.
It was shot silk as well, which is even worse, because it just...
Because it really holds those crinkles.
And you needed...
She bruised it with the amount of iron.
You needed to fold it and keep a crisp... You want it to keep a crisp fold, and it just wouldn't do that.
No. Not after it had been...
So as the editing was showing, as you were watching the programme, we were going, Jen's lost it. And
it's also something else to remember. They had to design the pattern. Just so that's in there as well. Yeah. Sorry, I just interrupted you there.
No, that's right.
Mid-flow. Yes, Jen had lost it.
Although it was still ups and downs with everyone, because Ricardo was using that traditional fabric and then spent the best part of 3-4 hours just constructing that and didn't sew anything. And all I could think was, well, he's lost it because he's not going to finish it. And then Juliet had done the the roundel thing, which when she'd done, you had the nipple hole, didn't you? And it was like, okay, she's messed it up because clearly that's not folded properly.
Yeah.
So there was every one where you were just thinking, this is not gone. And to be honest, I thought Leah's was too simple. I know there was a lot of folds in it, but it was just the collar and the placket. It wasn't anything else. Yeah. But it's always that thing we've said about if you're going to do it simple, it needs to be done properly. Yeah. And she did it properly.
She nailed it.
But I just...
But when you say simple, it's like that stitching down the front.
Oh God, yeah.
Oh yeah.
But you have to.
But just alongside the others, where they had gone for these construction across the garment to just doing the thing at the front. That's where I thought, oh well, Jen's had a bit. Jen's had a bit of a bad week, but they'll say that hers is too simple, and they'll give her a chance. And
yes, they could
but
have used that,
the thing to think about there's two very different types of sewing going on. Whereas Leah's is very fine, and a lot of you have to take your time.
Precision.
With the big ones, you have big folds you can work with and position. And there was supposed to be a hole in Juliet's, and she said that from the start, but she was going to back that. But there's big bits of material that you can get into position and stitch down, whereas it's not the finer details. Do you know what I mean?
No.
Whereas Ricardo spent so much time folding, pressing. So that was his garment. It was the folding and pressing, and then just the very simple construction.
But it was also the see-through.
I think what helped
that's made and the
But to me, I think what helped him is he used the traditional fabric that would have been used out there, and it was a more traditional design. Yeah. Whereas the others, they used the cottons and whatever it was they were using, and they were a bit more inventive with their designs. But you couldn't then fault Ricardo, because like you said, if he does that right, it's going to look absolutely stunning, and it was.
Yeah. Oh my god, it was fabulous.
But it could have easily gone the other way, couldn't it? With him.
I mean, part of me thought it was that rice paper you had as kids. You just thought in a minute, I'm going to lick it and it's just going to dissolve.
Well, if you did get that wet, it would just disappear. Be like, oh my god, it's like there's no way.
A few disco beats on the floor, the old sweat glands.
That's it, you're naked.
What do you think of his journey over the last sort of 6 weeks?
Well, I mean, like I said to you, I in that first episode, he just grated on me. He seemed to come in like a little child, I'm on the sofa. But that had already changed by episode 2. Something happened in between where he calmed down, and actually he is a very, very good sewer. Yeah. And he's also a very good designer. He has got some skills there. Yeah. And it was brilliant because he won the garment of the week, didn't he?
And his face was an absolute
and it was
picture,
just,
wasn't it?
and you know, you're going to use the J word. He's the one that's gone on the journey. Yeah. You know, Juliet has been quietly good in the background. And you know, Jen until this week was the same. You know, and as I said, I feel sorry because I seem to have packed Leah off every week, and she's never gone. But you know, she's made it through as well.
But she's played to her. Yeah, they've all played to their strengths in a way.
If you want to say who has improved, I would say it's Ricardo. Without a doubt.
I wonder, is it that he's improved or he's settled? Because at the start you can see he had a lot of detail, because the fact that he was able to in the past create jackets out of sofas and all this.
But I think that highlighted the fact that he's a very good designer as well as
he had a lot of creativity.
And he just needed to rein it in and focus it. And he's learned how to do that over the last 5 weeks or so.
Yeah, I think it was because he came in, everybody was just overexcited, and it's one of those when you first meet somebody, they're really intense, and then you have a cup of tea and you sit down and you're like, oh, so that's what you're like. It's okay.
I can cope with that.
Yeah.
So come on, who do we think is going to win now?
The
famous Jenna's gone.
I don't know.
So we're left with Juliet, Leah and Ricardo.
Yeah, I reckon it's between Juliet and Ricardo. Because Juliet's yellow top, I would wear that happily. Oh, it was fabulous. And the big billowy sleeves and all that swirling, and it was just, and the statement back piece where it was just completely bare. I would like a strap across that because, you know, I like my underwear. But it was a stunning top. So I think, because she, if she has designed that, she obviously has that creativity as well. So she actually, her top was based on a famous designer's top. Who is it? I
can't write it down. Can't remember now.
You didn't.
No.
I had written it down and I forgot my notes because I'm such a grown up. But it was fabulous.
I mean, I said to Stuart that I said, you know, my head is saying it's Juliet. Yeah. But my heart is with Ricardo.
I really want Ricardo to win. But I do, like, some of the tops Juliet pulls out, it's just like, okay, wow.
I think it's one of those ones where it is literally going to come down to what happens on Tuesday.
Yeah. You never know. Leah could turn it all on its head and be like, I got this.
As I said, giving credit to Leah, she's made it this far, despite me putting her down every week. So, there's no reason why she shouldn't walk away.
I'm sure she hasn't taken it personally.
No, she's like, I don't care. I've been following her on Instagram and she has created some fabulous bits. So I'm just in awe of all of them.
Are you thinking that she could still take
I'm wondering. That's what I mean. It's like on the day, if she was just like, I'm just going to have it and go for it. I reckon she could.
Do you think all the way through the editing has been done
to understate her?
Yeah.
Well, it certainly portrayed her as someone who is not as good as the others and too scatty.
Yeah.
And I think there is an element of that to her personality, as I said earlier.
Yeah.
But,
and Patrick has even said that at the point. It's like, what's going on with Leah? Well, it's her usual chaotic.
But, you could have argued that about Ricardo after episode 1, because he did, in that episode, I was like, I hope he goes, I can't watch him. But, he calmed it down, so maybe they couldn't get away with editing him how they perhaps wanted to, where Leah does probably work in a bit of chaos and is a little bit scatty, so they've overemphasised that.
Yeah, and they've really just gone for it. Because it's the same as some people. Some people love a nice tidy workplace, other people like...
I'll tell you what I do think is nice, though. Is that the 3 finalists are relatively young people with relatively less experience sewing. We had a couple of series ago, not that there's anything wrong with it, but the finalists were older women who had been sewing all of their lives, who had sewed their children and their grandchildren, their own clothes and everything like that. So they inherently have, 40 years worth of skills. Yeah. And that's great, because you think, well, it is a competition, that's what it is measure. But then you do then put off that people who've been sewing for 3 years and who have probably done quite well, but then they just can't compete with 40 years of sewing. So it's quite nice that, they are slightly younger, although as much as everyone knows I love Janet and was throwing my slippers at the TV 2 weeks ago, the same thing.
He has lots of slippers.
There is that, that thing that actually it's quite nice that some of these people have only been sewing for a few years and that they've got good skills and they've been recognised for that.
And it actually opens it all up to a whole other demographic of people that want to start sewing, and they can recognise themselves on the telly and be like, oh, I could totally, if they're able to create something like that.
Well, also,
I could create something like that.
I don't know if it is those 3, but when people sit there and they go, well, I taught myself using videos on YouTube, and I've only been sewing for 3.5 years, and then that's when you sit there and think, well, I could do that then probably.
If you can do it, I could totally do
it. Whereas
it.
somebody who's been sewing for 40 years, you just think, well, you know what you're doing. You were taught by your grandmother probably, who's taught you all the tricks.
This is it. It's going to take me 40 years to create this.
Where the younger generation, they are quite happy logging onto YouTube and finding the project they want to do.
Yeah, and discover something a bit different. Well, that's it, because it has inspired a whole, if you go online, so many people are now talking about it. I love seeing it, because I'm like, yay, let's do things. And even yesterday, I was up to London to go vintage shopping just because it's inspired me to just get more creative with my wardrobe again.
Are you going to show us your skirt that you're wearing?
I'm wearing my skirt. We kept talking about my circle skirt. I'll step well enough back so you can't see too closely. It's a bit big for me, but I made this, and it's got pockets. You can't really see, but it made me go, I'm just going to take that out again. It's a bit big for me. I'm going to learn how to take it in, but it's nice. It's nice to just be like, I made this. And I walked in and I'm just like, oh, I love your skirt. And I was like, thank you, I made it. It's awesome. Yeah. So we're all going to have to learn how to make something now.
Including me?
Yes.
I'm fine. I don't need to.
New skill. It's good for your brain. It's good for your brain to learn something new.
I know.
You
have to be part of our gang.
We'll start you small, make a nice bag or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just waiting for the fabric to fly across the room with a challenge.
We'll save those.
We're saving that. Yeah. If you've not watched the latest Wally Wednesday, we have actually talked about a possible challenge we will be doing. Well, we are doing. It's not possible. It is happening.
We're just finding the time to put it all together for you.
Everything's going on at the minute.
And then that way there'll be, once this finishes next week, then it won't necessarily be straight after that, but maybe in a couple of weeks' time, you'll still be able to get a second slice of the Woolpatch.
I'm going to be the novice. Am I?
Yeah, we're all going to be slightly novice. I
attaching sleeves to the neck and everything like that.
We're going to come in with some very strange things. But yes, we have lots of things going on. So we're very excited. So that's the semi-finals. We're very excited. So our finalists are Juliet, Ricardo and Leah. And we're very sad to see Jen go. I love Jen.
I always like the final though, because this is the one where they bring in like a family member to be their model, and then they bring back the other sewers anyway, and so it's always quite nice to then see what people have been up to, because of course, as we know, as you broke my heart last week, this is not filmed on a weekly basis. It was filmed quite a while ago, and so it's always nice to know what they've been up to since it's finished, because it does, even for those people who've taken part, they might have only been sewing once a month or something, but suddenly they're now like, oh, we're doing this, we're running classes, we're doing all that, and it just gets people involved in their local community again. Although we missed out for the last year or so on the series, the last winner was the one that then does all of that work down in the sewing shop in London, and she still runs classes there, and that really helps that sewing shop, because she was local to that shop. And when you have little shops like this, and you get someone like that coming nearby, that helps really as well.
And and all of them, actually a lot of them seem to be teaching sewing classes at the minute, because I was on, like, as I said, I followed them on Instagram, and Ricardo was like, I just finished up sewing class for whatever, and same with Jen, I think, and a few of the others. So it is very awesome. So that is it for this week. Do you want to pop in to say goodbye, mister?
Do we know what the theme is for next week?
It's just the final.
It's just the final.
So we don't know.
The theme next week is, oh my goodness, it's all happening. So we are going to see you in the next one. We may have a special episode. I'm not sure if that's happening.
We'll see.
not commit to it. But we will announce various things on social if it does happen. Otherwise, we will see you in the final. We'll be talking about the finals. And that's it.
Yeah.
Is that us?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.